A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this 115th episode of the Together for Education webinars brought to you by Notebook. More than a year ago, in April 2020, when the pandemic had just set in, schools were beginning to shut down, and online education was slowly becoming the new normal. We at Notebook thought that it was our responsibility to put together a series of webinars that would allow educators across the country and, in fact, across the world to connect, share their thoughts, discuss their problems, and build a community that would help each other out. Little did we know that more than a year later, more than 114 episodes later, I would be welcoming all of you once again. For the love and support that you've shown to this event, I am sincerely humbled and grateful to each and every one of you. To all the panelists, thank you so much for joining. It would really help if you could keep yourselves on mute for now, sir. I beg your pardon, ladies and gentlemen. As I was saying, before becoming the co-founder of Notebook, I was living my life in corporate. Achin, our founder and CEO, one fine day gave me a call and said, "We want to go into education. We want to solve a problem." Well, up until that point, I had been an employee. I had worked for organizations. On one fine morning, when I became an edupreneur, I realized there was a massive economic machinery that worked behind our entire education system. Something that is known only to the directors, the managers, the people who run these massive organizations and the well-oiled machinery of education across the country. In this last 1.5 years, besides the challenges that we have faced with online education, device availability, network, and of course, noise in the background, we have also had massive amount of money issues to deal with. Parents have lost their livelihoods. A lot of schools have had to face some dire straits in terms of finances. So today, we are going to look at the money matters, the economics of school management. The first speaker on this topic today is Mr. Philip Burrett. Mr. Burrett retired as the Deputy Headmaster from the illustrious Doon School in Dehradun after 44 years of serving in education across various institutions. Mr. Burrett served the Doon School as Housemaster, Head of Department, Dean of Activities, Dean of Student Welfare, Deputy Headmaster, Second Master, and Acting Headmaster with great distinction. He also carried out a visioning exercise for the Doon School in the year 2011 through an in-depth study of a number of British public schools and various schools in the US. Mr. Burrett qualified as a leadership trainer at Wellington College, UK in the year 2000. He is also an athlete, an adventurer, and a naturalist, and we at Notebook are privileged to have him as our senior advisor. Sir, thank you so much for being here. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Shabayu. I hope I am audible and visible.
Yes, sir. Perfectly.
Thank you so much, Vivek. It's an interesting topic, which I know very little about, but I'm going to venture into it. Everyone needs good schools, and schools need money to run effectively. And the onus of watching the income and output falls on the heads of the schools, the directors, the financial departments of the school. And this is what gives the heads of schools and principals ulcers and much high blood pressure and stress. As you know, when these people have to face the auditors who appear on the horizon each year, it's not an easy matter. In these COVID times, especially when fees are not being paid and teachers are being retrenched, the heads of schools are even under more pressure to make sure the schools run effectively, teachers are paid, and students are being taught to pass exams. Because even though school gates are shut, schools are still running. People don't realize this. Now, in India, the problem is that we have so many different types of schools, and each school is funded, differently. India has, education is a state subject. Of course, the central government does chip in to advise and help, but it's very much a state subject. In the years 2019-20, India spent 6.43 lakh crores of public funds on education. But while we are supposed to allocate 6% of our GDP on education, we hardly spend even half this amount. This is why 1 million government schools, where half of India's 250 million children study, are poorly funded schools. And this differs from state to state. There are states, like Maharashtra, where you have about 8% from the center. But there are other schools where other states where they're almost 50 to 60% coming from the center. So roughly 15, if I worked it out, 15% of the averages for funding schools comes from the central government. And having said this, many budgets in government schools remain unspent. And this is bad planning. I think underspending a budget is as dangerous or bad as overspending a budget. And in spite of all these good salaries and infrastructure, these schools they leave much to be desired. Large migrations are happening from these schools. Government schools have poor infrastructure, and the students have been very, very adversely affected by online learning and classes. Thus, the government will have to, in the light of the new NEP, have to divert more funds on teacher training and IT labs in the future. You then have semi-assisted and financial schools where you do get money from the state, but they also have to get money from the government. Then there are these minority and religious affiliated schools, which are doing very well. They're good schools. They are funded not only by fees, but also by the religious institutions and trusts that support them. These schools are very well managed and are doing, as I said, very well, like the Jesuits and the other private owners. These are non-profit institutions, but in their own ways, they face their own obstacles. The trust which stands for service and philanthropy is only one half of the story. The other is the profit half that provides money to run the schools. This allows the transfer of money from the trust to the company and on the forms of payment and for services. There are international schools run by big industrial houses, the Ambanis and the Birlas and the Pathways. They have no real financial worries as they are backed by these huge businesses and attract the richest students possible. But the school that I worked in and I know best are the private schools. Like I worked at Doon, and where almost 50% of the annual spending goes into teacher salaries and other salaries, and the rest very much shared out between infrastructure, library, expedition, sport, transport, electricity, diesel and oil, and provident fund, and academic running costs, foods, teacher training. Teachers, of course, are paid salaries dictated to by market forces, demand and supply. And these teachers are more accountable and they produce a better finished product than many schools. Now, when I was at Doon School, there were numerous salary adjustments. That's so numerous that I lost count of how much I was being paid and how we were being paid. Every new director of the board had his own ways of adjusting salaries. Now, these boarding schools, unlike their day school counterparts, do not charge students fees for books and uniforms and anything extra. We just have a total package. There's also no money ever asked for parents during the year for special days, for costumes, for sports, for building funds, etc. These schools are non-profit institutions, but they also raise money through their development offices and alumni by way of donations, scholarships, gifts to school, and also invest in various schemes and live off the interest and loans against these funds. These days, through the CSR schemes, some money does trickle into our coffers to pay for the infrastructure and development projects. Now, we and many legacy boarding schools now have these development and fundraising departments, which is something that's taken from the larger universities from the States and Europe, which raise money from alumni and other donors for scholarships and other developmental projects. And we at Doon were very successful in this aspect. And today, I believe that almost 30% of our students receive some financial assistance, almost ranging from 20% to almost full scholarship. Now, our school has been very active in, our board of directors and governors, mostly alumni, are industrialists, and they provide the best financial advice and help. And sometimes, very often, they actually dig into their own personal pockets and resources to help the school. I remember clearly that the Doon School for many years ran on a deficit financing scheme, where, of course, we joked that we teachers subsidized the education of the rich and famous for decades, until one of our headmasters said that if you want a quality education, then you better pay a quality fee. And suddenly we saw a 12% annual fee hike that sent the parents reeling all over the place. But that was the time our school really changed And, I think that was a time there was a turnabout in school, and we turned into really a world-class institution. And as a young teacher, of course, as Subayu said, I was oblivious to financial matters, apart from taking advance money and giving accounts and submitting bills. But later on, as I moved up the administrative ladder, I had to deal with money and finance, and something which didn't come naturally to me. Now, there was one thing that I hated even more than signing and filling up the government compliance documents every quarter, and that was making the biannual budgets for the areas under my charge. Most teachers are not experienced financially, and we need to be helped. Of course, these budgets were broken into expenditure, capital expenditure, and running costs. Never having been trained, I had to learn fast. And these were the days when the auditors descended on school, and the accounts departments were extra good to our guests. And of course, following these audits, we were asked to explain whys and whats and various questions related to the budgets in the areas under charge. What I'm trying to say is that there was a great deal of financial austerity and planning, a lot of feedback and accountability. The auditors even came into our dining hall at times to find out how much food was wasted at each meal. Budgets were scrutinized, paperwork involved, even withdrawing cash from the offices was made more difficult as tax rules got more draconic and our perks shrank. Even though salaries rose over the years as I was in school, the taxman took more, and every perk of ours, every perk, even including the residence that I had, was not free from tax exemption. There were yellow slips to take out advance cash for school trips. There were other spending. There was pink slips, which were, in order to get reimbursement for what I might have spent, and slips of all color. So there was a lot of financial tightening up in school in the years that I was there. Now, of course, the biggest headache that I faced was when it came to purchasing sports goods. And, we had to have float tenders, and they came in sealed envelopes, and those 3 sealed envelopes that I'm sure most of our audience are quite aware of. And the purchasing officer, of course, had to open these envelopes. And this was a time-consuming and I think a needless way of doing things, because while it provided a semblance of honesty and control, in reality, it was a waste of time. And the lowest bidder was not always the best supplier of goods. And I know years when we broke cricket bats by the dozens just because we had gone for the lowest bidder. So in the 80s, I could see a book in a bookshop and buy it for the school library by submitting a bill, and I was reimbursed. In the 90s, I would have had to go through the purchase department, and this involved a lot more paperwork. By the early 2000s, it was so cumbersome that I wouldn't even think of buying a book, because it all was, had to be routed through the purchasing system, which was very, very cumbersome and impractical. But the tightening up of the purse strings increased in my years in Doon. Now, I do agree that there are 4 ways generally of making money in schools. One is the fees and other additional forms of income through donations, etc. The second is, I think, reduce spending. The school has to become more thrifty. Third is to plug the leakages and the siphoning off of money, strict auditing, and shutting down of wasteful expenditure. And the fourth, I think, is wiser investments of school funds. Now, I once remember that when we were raising funds for the Uttarakanshi earthquake, and we had to, collect money, all we did was the boys gave up their desserts for a week or what's it, a month, and we made enough money to send to an NGO that we worked with, enormous amounts of money, just by giving up desserts for a month. Now, another thing was, in my trips abroad where I did a look-see mission, now Eton College, which is one of the most elitist schools in England, do not charge the highest fees by far of any private schools in England. And that is why, because they own a lot of real estate in London. And every time they want to, develop the school or raise this fee, they just chip off and sell some of their real estate. We have large boarding schools in this country, over 400 acres, which could do the same. And they do. I know a school not far from me, up in the hills in Missouri, that sold some land to the JP Hotel Group, and they raked in a lot of money, and they lifted their infrastructure to be really world class. Now, one of my headmasters at Doon was actually the CEO of Blue Star. He wasn't an educationist. He was an old boy who was brought into school because of his expertise in financial planning, which is what got him the job. And what he did was he got the school on financial tracks. Now, it always seems, to my mind, in our school, we staggered our headmasters between the one who spent too much money and developed our infrastructure, but also emptied the school coffers. And then his successor was brought in to undo the damage and tighten things up financially. And the next person was brought in was a spender again. And this went on and on. I know that my first headmaster was he made us tighten our belts so much that he called me up one morning to find out why there was a discrepancy of 5 rupees in my house feast accounts. Now, as a housemaster, I had house accounts to deal with. I had a house budget, apart from the various budgets under my control. And these house budgets also had to be audited by the school accountant once a month. And this task I handed over to a very smart class 12 accounts student who was a wizard at finances because he was far better than me. And he currently manages his own hedge fund business, very successful one in Calcutta. I would say that in these COVID days, these COVID times, that school heads and owners and boards and principals, they have to don their thinking caps on to look for the best way forward and to tide through these difficult times. Because as I said, it's not easy to explain to parents what is needed. It's difficult to explain to people who are suffering on their own. But no money means no schools, and teachers have to be paid. With this, Shabayu, I'm going to hand this over to you and to the experts who will take us through and teach us more about financial control. Thank you, Shabayu.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for sharing your experience with school finances. Although I would submit, knowing a little bit about your cricket exploits, the reason you are breaking bats by the dozens was not just their faulty quality. Must have been the stroke play as well. Well, ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is Achin Bhattacharyya. Achin is the founder and CEO at Notebook. A chartered accountant by training, Achin was a director at Deloitte prior to starting Notebook. He has worked in India and abroad in various senior capacities in GE, PwC, KPMG, and Deloitte. He is a fellow of the ICAI and a member of CPA Australia and CPA Ireland. He is also the recipient of the prestigious Indian Achievers Award. Achin is an avid reader and a passionate traveler with keen interests in economics, history, literature, and philosophy. He is a regular speaker at various forums and chambers of commerce, and also contributes articles to numerous publications regularly. He is also on the board of some of the most renowned corporates and contributes significantly to their brand strategies. Achin, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Shubha, am I audible?
Yeah, Achin, loud and clear.
I once again welcome all of you to today's topic, which has always been important for sustainability of any organization, and has assumed special significance during last 1.5 years due to the practical challenges around us. Now, at Notebook, during my interaction with school management in different parts of the country, considering the fact that we work closely with so many schools across the length and breadth of the country, one of the most common topics that have come up has been about the economic issues that schools have been facing. Today's session is our humble effort to try and understand from various key stakeholders in the schooling ecosystem their take on this. Our approach, ladies and gentlemen, as always, is solution focused. Now, with your permission, let me digress a little from today's topic to discuss about the increasing importance of financial education, as a lot of serious, heavy discussion is soon to follow. So I just digress a little. In the year 2018, for the first time, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, started testing financial literacy as part of its PISA assessment. And 2018 was the first year, which is one of the, PISA assessment, as all of us in this forum, all esteemed educators are aware, one of the few international benchmarks for comparing academic achievement among various nations. Now, coming back to this particular focus area, financial education, at the lowest level of difficulty, students had to be able to identify the purpose of an invoice. In one of the more complex questions, students were asked to explain how a consumer might benefit from paying off a high interest loan with money from another lender. China's Shanghai province topped the OECD list in this particular area with a mean score of around 602, more than 100 points above the average, which was around 500 for other OECD countries. US students' mean score was around 492, which is considered statistically on par with average. So it goes on to show that even if you look at organizations like OECD, so much of increasing importance day in and day out is being given to financial literacy, financial awareness. And the whole concept of being financially aware, prudent, well-trained is being nurtured from such a young age. Now, research shows that women, the elderly, etc., are groups with the lowest levels of financial awareness. Now, ironically, for the elderly, confidence in one's money management prowess seems to grow with age, contrary to popular perception, widening the gap between perceived and actual knowledge. Now, men seems to be in better grasp in this particular subject than women, independent of age and education. But women, to their credit, are more aware of the importance of financial education. So while men outperformed women on the finance quiz, greater number of women responded that yes, we do need proper financial training. And the fact that women are more conscious, definitely, if I come to the next part, then we understand that how actually, in spite of the fact that on the surface it might seem that men are more financially aware, women actually tend to outperform men. Now, as financial products become more diverse, complex, and widespread, and more people join the middle class, fighting the world's financial illiteracy with even more of a priority, practical and accessible education programs should be offered to the millions of people whose economic well-being would improve if they only knew about managing their income and savings, however meager that may be. Now coming to my earlier point, that how women have been doing fantastic, and these are global records. In Bangladesh, for instance, Nobel Prize winner Muhammad Yunus, creator of the microcredit phenomena, which is really famous all around the world, as all of you are aware, has found that women not only repay loans more often than men, but that when women control the money, their families were more likely to benefit from their income. Another study in Philippines reported that when women have control over a couple's savings account, expenditure shifts towards the purchase of family targeted durable goods, such as washing machine, kitchen appliances. Last year, another instance, for instance, Haitian authorities distributed food vouchers only to women in the aftermath of the devastating earthquake that happened there. They said that food would be more likely to be divided equitably within the household this way than if men got the vouchers. Another example coming from Mexico at Operation G.D.S, which is Mexico's innovative anti-poverty program, it successfully transfers its cash transfers to mothers, conditional on their children's school attendance and health clinic visits by family members. Now, follow-up studies find that the money usually goes for food, children's clothes, and school supplies. So women utilize the money far better than men, and it's improved. A study by MIT economist, Esther Duflo, I know that it's a very familiar thing, considering the fact that she's the better half of our very own Nobel Prize winner economist, Abhijit Banerjee. So a study by Esther Duflo at MIT finds similar results comparing South African grandmothers and grandfathers' usage of their old age pension funds. And it's not just a peculiar feature of developing economies. So it has been seen all around the world that even in US, low to moderate income two-parent US households, children are less likely to experience food insecurity when their parents' food in income is controlled by their mother rather than by their father. So women-centered poverty policies aren't a new idea, but the growing body of evidence suggests that they are quite prudent. However, today's topic is about financial ecosystem in schools, and I'll come back to this without digressing any further. We have a galaxy of esteemed panelists to enlighten us on this very important topic. I sincerely thank all of you for giving me a patient hearing, and I eagerly look forward to hear from our esteemed panel on this very important topic. Over to you, Shubhai.
Thank you, Achin. Thank you for shedding a light on the other side of money matters, where schools can actually impart education on financial literacy and help young people, especially in developing economies, develop a better understanding of their finances. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as Achin mentioned, we do have a galaxy of stars in today's panel. Before that, however, just a couple of minutes to tell you about Notebook. We at Notebook are an edtech organization. We make short videos pertaining to the school curriculum. These videos come in handy in two different ways. One is when you as a teacher want to introduce your topic to your students in a more visual way, in a more engaging way. You have access to these videos during a class, whether it's online or offline. You can play these short videos, which are 6 to 10 minutes in duration, and have your students far more engaged with the topic that you're about to teach. The second way is how students can benefit from it. They have access to these same videos on their personal devices, laptops, smartphones, whatever they have at home, and they can access these anywhere, anytime that they want to. What this means is months after you've taken your class, the student who plays that video which was played in class that day would remember what you taught in class. What I'm going to do now is play a short montage of a couple of the Notebook videos so that you know exactly what I'm talking about.
नमस्ते बच्चों, नोटबुक में आपका स्वागत है। इस नए वीडियो को आपके सामने प्रस्तुत करते हुए हमें बेहद खुशी हो रही है। हमारा उद्देश्य है परंपरागत शिक्षा को आधुनिक तरीके से पेश करना, ताकि हमारी ये नई पीढ़ी या आप सभी कहीं भी कभी भी इसे आसानी से पढ़ सकें।
Hello students, today we are going to study the story Madam Rides the Bus, written by Valli.
The king, Louis XVI, had come to power in 1774 at only 20 years of age. The king helped the 13 American colonies gain independence from Britain.
Curly brown hair turning permanently black. If you memorize this line, it will help you remember the ratios all your life. How? Let's see. Some people have is a way of remembering sine is equal to perpendicular by hypotenuse. Provides energy for everything you do throughout the day. Next is the nucleus, the brain of the cell. This is where all the secrets are stored. Why do you think you have black eyes as your parents? Aha! Thank the nucleus.
Whoa, what is this? We are gonna drown.
Don't worry, you're not going to drown. This is the cytoplasm.
Sometimes, a fully grown individual, such as Hydra or Planaria or starfish, can give rise to a complete individual from its body parts. Isn't this interesting?
नोटबुक में आप सभी का पुनः स्वागत है।
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is what we at Notebook do. This year, we are also presenting an event called Ignite. Notebook Ignite is an international inter-school online innovation and entrepreneurship challenge. We are asking young students to don the entrepreneur's hat and solve real-world problems with their innovation. And we're proud to announce that we have IIM Calcutta Innovation Park as a knowledge partner in this endeavor. Well, ladies and gentlemen, those were the short announcements I had for you. It's time to introduce the fantastic panel that we have for you. Advocate Gambhir Dev Singh Charak is a true educationist at heart. He is the secretary of SG Dogra Foundation and Dogra Educational Trust that are running prestigious schools and colleges like Dogra Senior Secondary School, Rich Harvest Schools, Dogra Law College, Dogra College of Education, and Dogra Degree College in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. He is ably supported by his better half, Mrs. Ruchi Charak, an administrator par excellence, the director of Rich Harvest School, which provides quality education to the suburban population of Jammu. Sir, ma'am, thank you so much for being here today. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you.
Monisha Datta started her career as a software developer and corporate trainer after completing her master's in computer science and later an MBA in advertising. However, she soon decided to move away from the corporate into the challenging world of boarding schools. She has been the co-founder of the Doon Girls School and Dehradun Boys School. With a presence in the education sector for the last 20 plus years, she currently is involved in understanding the global education systems and in devising curriculum and pedagogies for early childhood education and senior schools based on global requirements. She is currently the director of the Doon Girls School and also the director of Learning Forward Academy, which is the Learning Forward India Foundation, and actively involved in teachers training and development. Ma'am, thank you so much for being here again. It's always a pleasure and honor to have you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, ma'am. We also have with us Colonel Kumar Pratap Singh, retired, who is the founder chairman of CCS School in Gurugram. Colonel Kumar Pratap Singh is a product of the National Defence Academy, Khadagwasla in Pune. His last appointment with the Indian Army before taking premature retirement in 1998 was Director of Munitions at the Army headquarters. He has been a sportsman and has played most field and racket games. Colonel Pratap was a member of the Army team that participated in the Himalayan Car Rally. He is an executive member of the National Adventure Foundation. He is also a member of the education wing of FICCI and member of Quality Circle Forum of India. He is the president of Gurgaon CBSE Schools and senior vice president of the Haryana Progressive Schools Conference. Sir, it is wonderful to have you back. Always a privilege to have you on the platform. We also have with us.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. We also have with us Mrs. Shakuntala Jaisinghani, who has a proven track record of more than 4 decades in the field of education as teacher, principal, director, consultant, teacher trainer, and inspector of schools in India and abroad. Currently, she is the director of KJEI Trinity Group of Schools and Junior College, school inspector in UAE, consultant for an IGCSE school in Tokyo, textbook validator for Poda Management Mumbai, a master trainer for CBSE Pune COE, master trainer for assessment training program delivered by Center for Assessment Evaluation and Research, and teacher trainer for core subjects of CIE Checkpoint. She's won the International Leadership Excellence Award by Macadamia Dubai, the Nation Building Award by Rotary Club Pune, the International School Award Leadership Award by British Council, and the Best Principal Award by Rajasthan Board of Education for excellent result in the board exams. Ma'am, it's a privilege to have you on the platform. Thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you. It's nice being here.
Also, as a part of our efforts to bring together the solution close to the problem, we have today interesting representatives from the solution part of this, an NBFC. We have Mr. Vivek Baranwal, who's the business head of Education Institutional Loans. With nearly 2 decades of experience, Vivek is an industry veteran. He has deep insights and knowledge of India's growing financial services sector. Vivek is responsible for setting up the Social Infrastructure Loans, SIL, and lending to financial institutions, LFI business verticals, with the help of his deep understanding of the lending and mortgage space. We also have with us Mr. Rajesh Kachave, who's the business head educational loans at Avanse Financial Services. With 21 plus years of comprehensive experience in the BFSI sector, Rajesh joined from HDFC Bank, where he was the national head of education loans and zonal head of loans against securities for South. He has a proven track record of quintupling books. His sharp business acumen, the sound understanding of market expansion, product development, and launches has helped him drive the business successfully. Vivek, Rajesh, it's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you, Shayu.
You're welcome. We also have with us Mr. Rohit Gajbhiye, who's the CEO of a company called Financepeer. Rohit has had a stellar academic career, himself being an alumnus of IIT Bombay, Stanford, and finally DBS. He also features on the Forbes 30 under 30 list for finance across Asia Pacific. Well, that's the wonderful panel that we have lined up for you today. I'll stop my share and start my camera so that we can all start this discussion. Once again, a big thank you to all of you for being a part of the discussion today. I will start with you, Mr. Charak sir. In the last 1.5 years since this lockdown, we have seen a lot of parents losing their livelihoods. Now, a direct consequence of that is them being unable to, often pay school fees, and therefore, this tremendously stressful situation of schools having to decide what to do with parents in such situations. So, your comments.
Actually, good evening. First of all, good evening to all of you. And actually, this is we are going through very difficult times, and this is not only for any any one individual, or for I'll say it is not only for parents. It's a difficult time for teachers also. It's difficult time for managers, for organizations. Everybody is suffering these days. So we have to we have to focus on hand holding especially. And I have seen during these times only that courts have become second alternate government. Everybody, every parent, every government is flocking in the court against the schools. Government and parents are up in arms against schools. So, and they are only focusing on either reducing the fees or not not paying the fees. But I fail to understand why government is not focusing on providing quality education to the students. Even if the schools are charging fees, government should come up with a program. It should come up with a policy wherein government fix onus of the schools that this is XYZ quality we want from schools, and this is how you have to provide education to the students. These times we have n number of companies coming in for providing e-learning platform for engaging students. But if I basically I would suggest that if we have some people on board who are into policy making as well, or who can suggest to the government, why government do not step into the shoes of the schools, and the government should come up with a idea, or government should it should directly talk to the companies, those providing e-learning platforms, that they should collaboratively provide a single platform to the schools, and that too at a fixed rate. Many schools are being cheated by some jhola chhap companies on this pretext, only on e-learning pretext. So this is what needs to be taken care of. And in India, we cannot compare Indian schools with UK schools. In UK or in other parts of the world, especially in developed countries, schools are properly aided by the government. But in India, by and large, we are unaided schools. We've been in this line for the last 56 years. My father, he had been higher education minister as well in the J&K state, and I have seen things, and I have observed things very closely. I have seen how policies are being made. This is very, I must say, very pathetic. Usually people who are running schools, they are not taken on board. It is a totally democratic setup. Heads are counted. There are these much of schools, and there are these much of parents. So every government's policy is to please the parents. It is not to focus on the quality education. So this is one thing. Now that during this pandemic, government has stopped. No school will charge any capitation fee. Only you have to charge tuition fee, or you have to charge annual charges, and there is still fight going on Supreme Court or Delhi High Court for annual charges as well. So schools cannot function like this. With this uncertainty, schools cannot function. So we have to make government understand, or government must understand, that this is the time where government should handhold parents as well and schools as well. So schools are supposed to function as industry. In schools, you have to take NOC from Labor Department. You have to take NOC from Pollution Control Board. You have to take NOC from, you have to, enroll your teachers with ESIC. You have to, implement PF schemes, everything which is there in industry. Every school is being treated as industry, but you are not getting benefits of industry. You are being told that as a school, you are being told that, you are a not profiteering organization. You cannot go into profit making. So you have to do charity. If we have to do charity, we have to do something for our growth as well. If I am running a school and if I want to expand, I want funds for that. So this is, by and large, I think this is the, painful area every school manager is facing these days. And rest I'll, put before the house, and house has to take a call on everything. And I think we have very learned speakers who will be speaking after me. They'll throw light on the various issues, how to manage schools, because, I am also struggling with the issues, and I also need solution. I think, you have done a yeoman job by organizing this event on this specific topic. So I think we will get some, by merging all these brains, we'll get something out of it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So much. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for candidly sharing the stress that schools are facing. I'm sure this is the same sentiment that will be echoed across every single principal and school director we have on the panel today. Colonel Singh, if I may come to you next, sir. Parents losing their livelihoods, how has been your experience with fees collection, sir?
Well, I'll slightly disagree with my friend Charak, right? First of all, there is no doubt that the schools are having problem, but the schools which are having bigger problem are the budget schools in the rural areas and even in the cities where the fee levels are low. But if the interaction between the school management and the parents and staff is good, I don't visualize any problems. As far as those people who have lost their livelihoods and have had problems, we go back to the Supreme Court order. Recently, they passed that, yes, reduce the fees by about 15%. That was one. And they said any parent who has some distress, it should be looked into. Now, when I'll give the examples of my school, out of the entire about 1,250 or 1,300 students, just about 60 parents came forward who had some problem. And they said, either they reduce the following charges, annual charges, or whatever it is. And that was done. And the rest of them paid. There was a small percentage which could not pay, did not pay because of various activism which happened. In fact, the problem amongst the parents is not as much as the activism which is happening by certain people who are wanting to create this problem. Getting down to the basic issue that there are schools right from zero fee to 40,000-50,000 rupees fees. It is the parents who themselves choose which particular school they want their child to be in. Having done it, every parent feels the fee is high. And everyone knows that the fee has to be raised. It is raised by about 9 to 10 or 12, 15%. 12 is just about okay. As far as some states are concerned, UP has said that CPI plus 5% is something which should be charged. And that is the amount by which it can be raised. So it is very simple. In Haryana, it says at the beginning of the year, you specify as to what increase you want to make, and we write down and give it to them. My friend Charak was mentioning about capitation. Well, again, TMFI judgment of 12 judges had given autonomy to all the schools to decide their own fees and all their systems. Of course, they said there will be no commercialization or taking of capitation. So my friend, when he's thinking of taking capitation, well, that is something not allowed and is not happening. But any amount of fee that you want to fix for the school, well, that is there, and 10 to 12% rise happens. When we look at the financial management in the schools, as I said, if the school is managing it well, they will not face financial problems. But when we compare it with the government, as from the Doon school, the headmaster was mentioning, that we are spending less percentage of the GDP. Yes, the government is spending 6,000 rupees per child per month. And there are very, very few schools, hardly about 5 to 7% who are probably charging on the higher side. About 80 to 90% is below this. Coming back to commercialization also. Well, here I'll agree with some people that it is the government which is doing more commercialization. If you look at, I'll give you the statistics as to where all, because everybody today has started feeling in the administration and everywhere that yes, private schools are rolling in money and they have lots of money. And they start off that if you are charging for electricity, there is a minimum charge. I was just having a look that even when the schools are closed, there is a minimum 80,000 rupees that have to be paid every month. That is the minimum charge. Then comes property tax, which even on the land, it is being charged. I think very recently, one of the state government, probably Maharashtra, somebody has exempted it, but Haryana, it is still not exempt. Some schools are cribbing that we have to pay 5 lakh rupees for a land for which we've already paid. Then comes the charges about the transport, all the taxes for the transport, road tax, passenger tax, every possible tax is being given. So these are the issues with the government I was mentioning. One is about, yes, and the normal GST. Anything that we do in the school, whether we buy equipment, repair maintenance, or anything, or computers. For AC, the GST is 28% if you install it. I had just calculated one day, it went to almost about 22% of the total revenue that we spend is going to the government as tax. That is tax part. So when we are talking about the commercialization, parents are cribbing and their fees, which we get, it goes down to the government, at least about 25-30%. This could be reduced, which has not happened. Looking at the school development as such, well, yes, my friend Charak was wanting that money. Well, it has to be planned and it has to be staged twice. It is not that all of a sudden you can bring up a building. Here, when we compare it with the big houses and a school like ours, we started it about 40 years back. The total money spent to start the school was 11,500. But at that time, that 11,500, 5,000 was a bank loan, just about 5,000, and we managed it. How we managed? Well, all the vendors who were the suppliers, etc., we used to stagger their payments depending on how much they could adjust, how much they could accept in the daily point of view. Then the other things that, like here I'll give the example, in 40 years, the way it happened was with the repo with the parents and teachers. Banks were refusing loan to us. So, and if at all they were giving, they were charging 13, 14, 15%, not less than that. So I found a method. I requested some of the parents, I requested some of the teachers, okay, we need money for construction, for expansion, etc. And I'll give you a loan, interest of 8%. Start off. They started contributing. Initially, it was low. The first van that the school purchased, the moment the fellow came, a second-hand van, 4 or 5 teachers sat into it. We took a round. I said, we want to buy it. How many of you are ready to chip in some money? And the entire amount was collected within 2 days by the teachers, and we bought the van. Now, if I ask, lately I've not taken it from the parents, but yes, in most of the construction, and interest of 8%, whenever you want it back was given back. It was such a wonderful method that it is continuing. If today I go and stand outside the, collect the school staff, and I said I want 1 crore rupees to be collected by tomorrow, it will come up. So this is the financial management. If the people do it well, if they run the school well, if they are transparent with the teachers and parents, well, I don't visualize any hassles. But yes, school is not for profit. The money has to stay in, and people have to understand that, yes, here it is that. In Haryana, there is a scope for commercialization of the school. It is given in the act that if you don't want to run it as for charity, you can run it and pay income tax. And that is given in the rule, so that also if people want to follow that model, there are about 6-7 schools I am aware who have started this model, and it is working. This was one. Then was about, yes, there are teething troubles for new schools. But over the years, when you stabilize, things are far, far better. Like I have come to a stage where it is comfortable, but we have seen those days when once we were passing by the market, a sweet shop fellow, he had thrown out the racks, wooden racks, outside the shop. And I asked him, I said, "Bhaiya kya hai?" Kehta ye kachra bahar. Maine kaha, "Main le jaun?" "Haan ji, le jao." I got that loaded into rickshaws and got my library racks made out of that. It used to be so financially tight in initial days. But yes, so this is one part. And the other issues, then was about any other question that you had? I think I've missed something.
No, sir, this was fantastic. I mean, your story of how a school grows. And I think you got into crowdfunding way before it was fashionable.
I asked the bankers, I said, "You are ready to give it to Harshad Mehta, you can't give me the loan?" He said, "There is no provision." We borrowed the money from chit funds. I had borrowed money from my friends and relatives. Some, when I was ready to give them the interest, they said, "No, we will not take the interest." There were many people who didn't take the interest. And coming on to the audit issues, which in the Doon school we are talking about. On the contrary, when we call the auditors for their annual balance sheet, I tell them, I said, "Please do it with absolutely fine combing and find out what is the shortcoming." And they don't find it, because the entire staff understands that it is neat and clean. And when I tell the people that one of the things which the government has started is that there will be no cash transaction or minimal cash transaction. So we cut that out completely. That come what may, we will not take cash. During the COVID times, a parent who had not paid for a while, one fine day he comes about 60,000-70,000. He says, "Here it is cash." I said, "Sorry, we don't take cash." He said, "How do I do it?" I said, "I don't know." And he openly said, "It is all black. I can't even put it in the bag." I said, "Sorry." So anyway, the problem during the COVID times have happened. Those people who were in hardship, they were given relief. Some people who, there were 3-4 cases where they lost the father, family head, earning person. Immediately their fees have been waived off completely. Whatever were the charges, they will not pay a single penny. In fact, there's another system of those who are single mothers, they also don't pay. So looking at the finances, being the president of all the schools of Gurugram here, I'm aware that there's a lot of cribbing. So I've told most of them, I said, just wait on, have patience, and I'm sure things will be okay. And in due course, the noise will settle down, and you will be able to find out the genuine people who have got hurt or who have got distressed. And they have to be, and they must be helped out. So those are the things as far as fees concerned. And as far as the government rules, I've already conveyed that it is okay. It couldn't be better. The only thing is the judiciary went too slow. All the cases which they settled, they took 6, 7, 8 months and allowed the hue and cry to carry on. It is as per the TMMPI judgment, nobody can question a school's fees. The autonomy has been granted. It is there. Has to be there. But why give a judgment after 7 months? If it had been done faster, people would have understood better. I've seen a politician here. He made a noise all around, announced that don't pay any fees. I'm going to the education minister and I'm going to tell him that you will not pay. Now, the issue is are we all people so illiterate that we don't know as to what is the source of finance of a school? The only source with which the schools are financed is by the tuition fee. And if the parents think that if they all of them decide not to pay, what happens to the school? Well, it closes. But the same parents, when they come individually, they say, sorry, we understand. So this is one part with regard to the fee issue. Well, I'm sure the rules and regulations are clear. The parents have to pay. And even if some relief is granted to an odd individual or a few of them, well, the burden goes to the others. It is because the total receipt is from all this, sum total is from all the parents only. So that is it. And well, if there is anything left, I'll come in or you can ask me later.
Sure,
but I'm very sure things are fine. Some people are suffering, the parents as well as the schools, and let's hope things change for better.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. So one thing is for sure that we have heard from both Mr. Charak and Colonel Singh is, yes, there is a financial stress in some form or the other. What I'm going to do now at this stage, I'm going to ask Mr. Vivek Baranwal, who's the head of institutional financing at the Avanse Financial Services organization, to come in here. And Vivek, you are the industry expert here. So if you could give us a lay of the land in terms of what the current situation with school finances is, what the government is doing, and how does the scene look?
Thank you, Shubhayu. Am I audible?
I can see you, Vivek, but I can't hear. Sorry, I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Okay. So just a sec. There was some problem. So, okay. So thank you for calling us. Thank you for everybody on the panel. I heard Dr. Pratap and Colonel Pratap Singh, and also the Dr. Charak sir. So when this was given to me that Notebook wants to do a webinar to understand what are the problems which are being faced by the schools, I thought it will be very enriching for us, because we at Avanse, so we fund schools, and as we speak, we have a plethora of almost 1,000 schools. And as I would be moving ahead, I would be agreeing partially with what Pratap sir has said and partially with Charak sir. So as the finance guy I would be agreeing partially with both of them. And if a institute which has been there for us 56 years, if they are facing this brunt today, and the institute which is there with 40 years, if they are facing this brunt today, that money is not coming in, and that is a reality today. So let me take you a bit back into time, and what I will do is I will take you back into time when this March 2020, when this pandemic was coming in India, and all of a sudden we were all smitten and beaten by this pandemic. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji came forward. There was a Janta curfew, and then subsequently there was a curfew which was installed and which was announced on 24th of March. And if you actually remember, so when this was announced, March and April are the academic admission season in north and western part of the country, where people come and take admissions. And that point of time, majority of the fee is collected, and that did not come. So because of which, whatever the cash flows, because people plan, and we were talking about planning when Phyllis sir was talking, he was talking about planning. We planned in the month of October, November, December, what will be our strength in the March, April, when you actually increase your admissions. And at that point of time, all of a sudden, because of this lockdown that was announced, there was no revenue which was coming in. For large schools, I will be talking about large schools because Pratap sir has talked about large schools. See, large schools, they have a habit of collecting fees quarterly in advance. Okay, so they get, so for the quarter of January, February, March, they will be collecting in the month of January itself. But smaller schools in tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 cities, or rural schools, or the schools where the fees are around in the range of 20,000, 25,000, 30,000, they allow the parent and they allow the students to study. And the fees are collected when the exams are held. And then there was no exams. Okay, so March and April, lockdown was announced, no exams, and all of a sudden, so earlier year fees and this year's admissions, double whammy, which actually happened to the schools. I'm sure all the school owners who are actually there on the panel today, or who are actually on this webinar, they will agree to this, that there was a huge crisis, and India was not poised for a online education. Not only the schools, because the parents, they have, in many households, you just had one smartphones. The digital infrastructure in India was not geared up to that level where you actually on board and you start teaching students digitally. The students were given auto promotion by virtue of law, by virtue of guidelines which was issued by the government, by courts, and by the boards. And because of which the parents said, "Ki boss, mera bacha, my son has been automatically promoted. Why should I pay fees for the last year?" And again, then for the particular financial year, since the online education is not happening to that level, teachers are struggling. Philip sir said one thing: schools are shut, but they have to run. There are livelihoods relying on school. There are teachers who have to be paid. There are co-workers, there are drivers, there are administrators, there are peons who have to be paid. If the fees doesn't tick in, then in that case, how does a school pay? In India, there are 15.1 lakh schools, of which 3.5 lakhs are private schools. 22,000 are CBSE schools. If I may just leave aside the CBSE school or the ICSE schools, which are 3,000, in that case, the 3.2 lakh schools, state board schools, and we have done a survey because we have funded almost 1,000 schools, and we have a range of schools which have fees up to 1.5 lakhs, and we also have schools which are up to 18,000, 20,000. There, the 1.5 lakh guys also said that they have received only 60% of the fees. Vis-a-vis, if the Supreme Court guideline was supposed to be adhered to, in that case, they should have paid 85% of the fees of last year. And this year also the fees have to tick in, but that is not happening. So there is a scarcity in the schools, which we all have to agree. Government has kicked in. There are many machineries which have been kicked in from the government side. They have kicked in, they have started paying. So there was a moratorium, because not only the fee and the salaries of the teachers, you have EMIs to run, because majority of these schools have taken huge amount of loan for capex expansion. Whenever you construct a building, whenever you go for an upgradation of a lab, whenever you go for buying a sports, because many schools today, they go for extracurricular activities. You have a dance room, you have a western room, you have a swimming pool. All these requires huge amount of funds. They take funds. So there was a moratorium which was announced, which was for 3 months. Then initially, then it was again given for 3 + 3. So it became 6 months. The government of India also came up with a scheme of ECLGS, which many of these schools availed, where you had 20% of the loans to be given to schools to manage their working capital devoid. But that 20% was not taking care of everything. Even if we talk about an EBITDA of a school at ranging from 30 to 35%, if just 20% of the fees is coming in and 20% support as a loan, again as a loan to the institute, they are just not being able to service. So the schools are under crisis. Again this year, when I talk of, so this year again the pandemic, the second wave that we are all talking of, kicked in the month of March. Again the admission session, again the peoples were all promoted. So again this time also what we are seeing is there is again a devoid. People have stopped paying, but this year the schools are much more in line. People have learned the lessons last year. They have gone for, so we have funded them. We have funded them for digital upgradation. We have funded them to build on the capacity to go for online classes. Because that is, we know for sure, if these schools are not able to impart online education to their students, then in that case, they will not be able to we will not be able to get IEMIs. They will not be able to collect fees. We will not be getting IEMIs. So government, is there something else? that we need to do? Yes, that definitely. We have made representation through ourselves, through SOCHM, through CII, through FIDC, which these are all bodies which represent NBFCs and for representation to RBI, Ministry of Finance, and what we have represented for, including education as a infra segment. When Housing for All was actually launched by the government of India, and the Prime Minister's dream that every household should have a house of their own, in that case, housing was given an infra status. The funds started pouring in. You saw many housing finance companies. You had a nodal agency which were giving refinance to these housing finance companies, and they were able to disburse to the last mile borrowers. We should also have a infra status because we want NEP, gross enrollment ratio. We want to increase it to 100%. We want enrollment in the higher education to go up to 50%, which is just at 26% today. In that case, it has to be done with quality infrastructure. The teachers have to be trained. The infrastructure has to be developed. If that is not done, then in that case, the NEP policy, which has a vision in the year 2025 and the 2030, how will that be fulfilled? Many students are getting dropped off. Many. You can read lines after lines. Charak sir called about that courts have become the second government. Today, the courts are deciding. There is a coercion which Pratap sir and Charak sir both talked about. There is a coercion between parents that I will not go out and pay fees. Even if the people who have not lost their jobs, people who have not lost their livelihoods, if there is a genuine case who has lost a livelihood, he needs to be taken care of. I also agree to that. Because he has lost his job, the main breadwinner of the family has been lost. There is a definite the child's education should not be stopped because the fees are not coming in. But people are using this alibi, which is there today, to not to pay the fees. We have got so we are into our financing institutions. We have gotten in touch with almost 1,000 education institutions that we have. We have given them that we will upgrade your schools. We will provide you money to upgrade your infrastructure so that you are able to provide online education to your students, so that you are able to collect fees. We are also making representation to Government of India that these are Government of India should be giving the right kind of attention to education, because if education is not there, then tomorrow, because we talk about India being a young country, we talk about India, a country where youth is the pure strength. If that is lost, because we have so much of things to be achieved over the next 3 to 5 years or 5 to 10 years, that will not be achieved. So that is there. So for all the representation that we have done to ECLGS 3.0, that is a new scheme which has been come in. Government of India has left out education as a sector, which is one of the most impacted sector today. If you actually see hospitality, tours and tourism, a sporting facility, that has been included. But education as a segment, because they have not seen the ray of light for last 16-18 months. The schools have not opened up in totality. People are not sure. Even if the vaccination drives goes the way it has to be, only the senior sections would be opening up. The junior sections from class 1 to class 5 might not see opening up in this particular academic year. That is going to be a real challenge. There has to be a facility to upgrade. There has to be a refinance facility or interest subsidy facility, which vis-a-vis by which we can actually lend to this education institution to upgrade their digital capability. If we have to make world-class institutions in India, that has to be initiated from the government side. We are working on those lines. I think as a company, whatever we could do, we are trying to do it from our side. We are also trying to actually enable the parents also. If you don't have money today, we are tying up with edutech companies, and I am telling you that these companies will be enabling you to actually take a loan and repay the school fees for the current financial year. So there are many things that we were talking about, Subayu. I think education as a sector has been impacted. It requires the need and has to be taken care of. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Vivek. See, this is the advantage of bringing in the solution side right after the problem side. You kind of...
May I, if you don't mind, just ask a small question?
Please, sir.
When they are financing schools, I mentioned that in the school, I've been taking it from my friend, relatives, teachers, parents, the money on loan. that is very, very low. Good percent, 8% was earlier. It should be even lower now. How much are you charging these schools or providing this help to the parents? At what rate of interest? Because to my
So there are
mind,
different.
it's very exorbitant of what I have seen so far.
So Pratap sir, I think we have a plethora of products, right from unsecured to a fee financing to a secured loan. I will be talking about all those products in details. And we have a subvention model wherein you can just subvent 8% of your fees, and we will be giving you the complete fees. So if you talk about your school, 1250 students, 8% of subvention, and if I may take an analogy of 1 lakh rupees as a fees, 12 crores, you get me a 8% subvention, I will give you the complete fees for the year. So that is the model that we work on, and we have a unsecured model. So if a loan is unsecured and we don't, there is completely risk is borne by us. In that case, the charges definitely are on a higher side. But there are unique models that we are working on. You can get loan with just 8% subvention of your fees. So this is a model that we work on. We have plethora of products. We can connect with you separately after this call or after this webinar, where we can give you the complete details of all the products that we have.
Thank you.
Wonderful. I love it when this happens, when two panelists figure out a strain to connect offline. My day is made. Shakuntala ma'am, if I may come to you next. We have discussed about the financing of institutions, right? But the reality is the people on the ground who are most impacted are going to be people, the parents, the teachers, right? Ma'am, how has been your experience during this period of time?
So, good evening to everyone. I feel a bit out of place in this group, because I'm more of an academician than, financial guru but yes, financial management is part of the, responsibility that I hold. So I'm not very good at it. I do have a lot of help from the trust management, who help me out with that. But yes, I can only put forward a few things that I've experienced. That yes, initially there was this major crisis happening in schools where parents refused to pay. Not only those, as I very rightly said, who couldn't pay, but even those who could. They thought this was a good way to get, off the hook from paying fees. At least one part of their, finances could be managed by not paying the school fees. So there were lots of cases in the court and other places, and people waiting to get the announcement so that they could, get away with it. But they didn't realize how much it was impacting the school, because as per CBSE rules, we have to have 70% of our tuition fees for salaries, and only 30% is supposed to be for the management of the rest of the school. So with that kind of restraint and trying to keep to that, and also ours is a very small school, still growing, a very recent one, just 5-6 years old. And it was our chairman's philanthropic, vision. He wanted a school. They have many colleges at present. They have engineering colleges and at least about 6 or 7 colleges in the same campus. But he wanted a school which would be, providing quality education, but at very affordable, affordable for the masses. So in keeping with that, we tried to deliver it with whatever we could, keeping our fees very affordable, but at the same time being on par with the rest of the international schools, so that at least the children, if not the facilities, at least the education that we were imparting would be of that standard. So we had a very restricted budget also. We were supposed to be self-sufficient by last year, according to our own calculations of the budget. The building was given by the trust. So it was only the running of the school that had to be managed. And after 5 years, we are supposed to pay back all those. But unfortunately, that is what happened. The crisis happened and we were in trouble. Yes, the trust helped out, but even the trust was facing a lot of problems because all the colleges were also in a bad state. So it became very difficult for us to really pull through. So we did something like management by financial institutions to at least give EMI to the parents, because we did realize that these parents, especially we have the lower middle class with us, so they would be facing a lot of financial problems. So we thought at least if we were able to provide them the EMIs, so as many as possible. In fact, even 12 if they wanted, 10 to 12. And the school was ready to pay the interest for all those. So at least we could keep the school running and in good shape. And we tried to focus more on giving quality to those parents, to those children who were studying with us. And we also dwelled with, some one-on-one cases where we really felt that the parents did need the help that the school could give. So we did help them out. But anyhow, we just managed to pull through that 1 year. But thanks to the way we handled it, thanks to the way we managed the academics, the other activities that we were doing digitally and online, we have now come back. This year, our admissions have been quite good, and we've been able to retain a lot of our students. Although we did lose out on plenty, in the middle of the whole pandemic, because they went away to their own villages and towns and other places. So we had to lose out on some of them. And still, I think we kind of struggled through and just happened to manage. And we try to have a lot of dialogues with the parents to explain to them our situation. And when they said that, why should you charge fees, because we are not using your premises, we are not using your buses, we are not using anything in the school. So I have to explain to them, when you go out for your vacations, do you not pay rent for your house? Or because you're not there, do you not have to pay rent? Do you think we don't have to pay anything for the upkeep of the building, even if it's not being used? Do you think that the buses which are not plying, and of course we can't charge transport fees because we are not providing you transport, but we are paying EMI for the buses, fleet of buses that we had bought. We are paying the drivers, we are paying all the other staff. So all these expenses we had to explain to them. We had meetings with them because it was not such a large school and such a big number. We were able to call them in lots and try and explain to them our difficulties also. And somehow they did understand. And as I said, we have a good rapport with our parents. So we just happened to pull through very, very with great difficulty in the last year. This year, hopefully, I think we'll be in a better place. I hope, because again, we may have to, do the same thing. Yes, the development projects that we had, we'll have to keep on hold right now. So we'll have to now look at trying to sustain what we already have and do our best for the students. That has been our whole, purpose in the school. That as I said, student-centric, making it very, very, trying to give them the best kind of education in these limitations that we had. We've done a lot of activities with them so that they don't feel, that they are not in school, so they can't, that's all they have to do, attend classes. We've taken on a lot of interactive tools in the classrooms, making that interesting, trying to keep the children on board with us. And hopefully we are keeping on improving on that. And one more year, I think we still have to struggle a bit, but hopefully we'll get through this crisis.
Thank you so much,
Of course, I can't talk about all the other major, things about the account systems and things like that. Yes, that I think I leave it to all the experts that are here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience. That is of the greatest importance to us. And don't feel bad about not, meeting your plans last year. Every single corporate across the world had something called Vision 2020 as part of their plans by middle of 2019. None of them had anticipated that 2020 would go the way it went. So thank you so much for sharing, ma'am. Monisha, ma'am, if I may come to you next. Ma'am, you have been a corporate person and then moved into education. How has your experience been, particularly with, the parents' difficulties in paying fees?
Thanks so much for calling me over. A lot of insight I can find in this entire conversation. So, when it came to the way we went about with it, actually, from day one, we took parents on board. We started having a lot of interactive sessions with the parents, and we did not ask them for the fee for the first 6 months. We actually didn't even remind them for the process of paying the fee. I think we came to a point when September came in and some of our parents started calling up and saying, how the hell are you guys running the school? Because we are getting calls for all the other kids, but we haven't yet heard from you. So we told them we understand most of the industries were shut. And, we mapped out all our parents and their professions and tried to figure out which were the ones which were actually completely on a lockdown, in the sense like hospitality industry was on a lockdown. So all those industries we just left aside. And those were the children and people who we started working on with as far as the mental health was concerned, because there was a lot of pressure that came onto the parents. See, the initial 2 months was good for everyone. There was a lot of family time and everyone thought it was like a mandatory vacation that they got in. But slowly when the things started hitting them as far as their work was concerned and things, living under the same roof, especially for our school, boarding kids, they're not used to being with the family for such a long period. So eventually there were struggles that the family started having. So we started workshops and all with them. We started giving them a lot of things, like Shakuntala ma'am said, kept on the activities and all going. Because at that point of time, I think if we would have started calling out for fee and anything, we would have broken the bond that we had with them. We used to have individual and group meetings continuously. And slowly, without even our reminding the parents, we started getting fee from the ones who could afford or who were not going through any kind of crisis. The second batch that came to us was from the people who said, okay, fine, we can only pay this much for the time being, but we'll clear the dues by that time. So the last year somehow sailed through easily. This year, yes, we had a struggle because all of a sudden, everyone is realizing that the schools are not going to reopen even now. And we are going to continue with this model for a while. So this year, what we have done is we've anyway reduced the fee and we've shared that details with the parents. We have even shared the actual expenses that we are doing. So when we say that the school's not really running only on the tuition fee, we're not using the tuition fee only for the salaries, we're using it for a lot of other expenses. So we've shared those expenses, whether it is to do with the maintenance of the vehicles or it is to do with the Provident Fund and the ESIs, whatever we are spending on the teachers. So we've taken out a percentage and shown it clearly to the parents in the form of a letter. So they are aware that, okay, fine, these are, frankly speaking, a lot of parents were not even aware. They did not take it into consideration that these also would be the expenses. Their calculation is if it is X lakhs a month, a year, times number of students, or the school is earning this much. But what about the expenses? So even for the teachers, everyone sat on board and decided, okay, fine, this is the income we are getting. This is the expenditure which we have to incur. So how do we ensure that we don't spend any extra money anywhere else? So management expenses were cut down, redundant expenses were cut down. A lot of systems in schools are running because they are running in a certain way, right? So we don't revisit those systems in good times. But at this point of time, we revisited those systems. We saw what are the things. So we've never in our life shut down telephone lines, internet facilities. We shut down the telephone lines and got complete internet coverage done for the school because that is what we needed. We realized a lot of our teachers were not equipped with the gadgets to conduct classes. So we opened one area of the school to ensure that they could come there and take online classes. Went in for intensive training of the teachers so that they could get into the flipped learning mode and the other things so that they could utilize it and the children were educated best. We cut down on the number of periods in school. 3 days a week, 3 periods to begin with, so that teachers did not get overburdened. So, that kind of understanding that built between the teachers, the management, the students, all stakeholders eventually were a part of this entire game. And slowly, I think that was the only way. So I kind of agree with Colonel Pratap when he said that reaching out to your stakeholders is the best way to sort out a problem. Yes, it's not been easy. Some people who've lost the jobs, we haven't charged them. This is the second year that they haven't been charged, but we've taken, they have sent it to us that, over time, as and when they can pay, they pay. So sometimes 12,000 comes into an account and sometimes they send a 50 grands, whatever, but there's no force on them. And we share those details with the rest of the parents. So the ones who can pay don't back off from paying. So we've just tried to maintain this through a very transparent system. Yes, tough times. I don't know how we'll survive the third year, but it's not going to be that easy because next year is also going to be a reflection of these 2 years only. Semi on, semi off. So
thank you so much.
I think I agree with Monisha ma'am. Very, very nice. Taking parents on board is a must. I'll just read out a small extract of the message which I had sent to my parents during the second wave, when almost everybody was running for beds in the hospitals. Things were bad. Almost about 50 parents or oblique children of our school were affected. The message which I sent was, some of you may need help for hospitalization, medicines, food, transportation, and even finances. Please don't hesitate to call me directly at any time, day or night, or through the class teacher or in charge. My mobile number is this. Mobile number of the director and principal is this. I only got thank yous and not a single call for help. The point is that trust itself, that means they know there is somebody to help you out in case of an emergency. So Monisha ma'am, once you take the parents on board, without doubts, all the problems get sorted out, and all those who need help, well, we were there last year and we would do it again. Thank you.
Thank you. And the other thing, Shubhayu, there's a misconception. Schools cannot make profit is wrong. Schools can make profit, provided the profit goes back in the development of the school. The board of directors can't take the profit. Right, so it has to keep circulating. Of course, it's not possible that you don't.
It is
make
not profit. It is surplus. It is
yes.
up to about 15%.
So you just keep on, you keep on reusing that.
That is what is recycled. It is not profit. It is surplus.
You make
which is
money
used for development.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we don't use the word profit. In fact, most of the people, profit is if somebody is taking it home or if it is being given to somebody as.
Yeah, then we call it that.
Yeah.
Mr. Vivek, you were asking something.
No, ma'am, I was not asking. I was just answering one thing. In the country of India, all the schools are run under charitable trust or societies, which is rightly called by 15% is the accumulation that you can actually do year on your basis, which has to be used for the benefit of the trust or society. The promoters, the trustees, they are not supposed to take out those money. So I think, ma'am, school has to make money. There has to be huge amount of development which has to be done. Otherwise, how do you actually inculcate? How do you make a fantastic computer lab? How do you make a artificial intelligence lab? How do you make your school one of the best schools in your area? I think that is one thing. And since you asked me, your parents, we will be there to support you through thick and thin. We have definitely different kind of products that we have on the financial side. We will talk about it when we actually come to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vivek, for giving me that segue. I was actually going to invite Rajesh into the discussion now. So Rajesh and Vivek are both from Avanse. They handle two different sides of the business. While Vivek heads up the institutional finance part, Rajesh heads up the student educational loans. Rajesh, if you're there.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, sir. Thanks. I'm so sorry. I'll have to keep my video off because I'm in a hospital and the environment is not right for me to keep the video on.
I hope you're okay.
I'm okay. My daughter is not okay, so I'm with her.
Sorry to hear that.
No issues.
Yes, please.
So yeah. So Vivek, I think, spoke about how Avanse can be a partner in terms of taking care of the finances when it comes to schools. I take care of the retail part. When I say retail, the education funding to the student through parent. Okay. So we normally call it KG to PG. So if somebody is going to a kindergarten, we have something to offer. If somebody is going for a higher education, India, abroad, we have something to offer. So what Vivek was talking in this situation or in this scenario, where there is a burden of finances because of the pandemic to all the schools, and parents are in double mind whether to pay the fee or not. Unfortunately, even if they have capacity to pay, but because of whatever things and whatever they are hearing outside, some of the parents are not paying it. Sometimes as a parent, I also feel bad. We have all the money to spend on all the other things where the salaries are not stopped. But unfortunately, some of the parents are not paying for the school, the tuition fee. So, so we can provide you a combined solution to a school wherein, as Vivek rightly said, with a small subvention of around 8 odd %, we can actually upfront your finances to the school. At the same time, we can then offer that facility to the parent to pay in the equal installment without actually charging anything to them. So it works like a consumer durable model wherein normally we go to any of the white good shop, we buy TV and all those stuff, and whatever the price of that is divided into 12 or 24 months. So that's how the model is. So wherein school don't have to borrow it from outside by giving 11, 12, 13% of interest. They can just subvent a small amount of 8%, and we can pass on that benefit to the student or to the parent. So what will happen? School will get the fees. Parent will also not burden because you don't have to pay the entire fee in advance, which a parent can choose to pay in installments. So for example, if a school has a fee of 1,20,000 rupees, now in this situation, if something has gone wrong with that parent, paying 1,20,000 rupees upfront or maybe a quarterly fee to that matter becomes a difficult. But if you give him an option that you are okay, fine, you pay it in say 12 installments, where you just pay 10,000 a month, and rest will take care of. So that works for the parent, and the parent who is finding it difficult to pay the fee probably will say, okay, fine, let's go ahead. And for school also, because it's just they are getting this entire fee in advance by only paying 8%. So that's the model we work on. And unfortunate situation. As many of the panelists say, is because the core area where the income come to the school is the tuition fee or is the fee. So that's the only thing where the school generate revenue. If that is not coming, how school can pay the fees? There are a lot of infrastructure costs, as somebody was mentioning, that you have to, and if you pay the property tax, electricity bill, and you just can't keep the school because there is a maintenance also. Just because there is a pandemic and students are doing classes online from their home, you just can't keep the school locked. You have to maintain that. So there are associated costs also. So yes, I think government also has to do a lot. So if some part of or some portion on some locations or some geographies, if the government is saying don't pay the fee or reduce the fee by 15-25%, then I think they should at the same time look at reducing the taxes also, like property tax or electricity bill and all, to support the school. Because I find it difficult, because if you ask me, in the parents who are actually earning good, unfortunately those parents are also not paying fee. So you can't just blame the school if the parents like us also start behaving like that. So to all the members, or to all the guys who are there on this call, I can say we have both the solutions for the school also and for the parent also, wherein we can go join together along with the school and offering these kind of solutions to the parents.
Rajesh, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And all of us here, I'm sure I speak for everyone here when we wish your daughter a very, very speedy recovery. Take care. Rohit, I'll ask you to join the conversation.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Rohit, I'll ask you to join the conversation at this point. You're the CEO at Financepeer. We just wanted to get your inputs on how parents can, have the ease of secure financing for the education of the children.
So first of all, thanks a lot, Subhayu, and thank you everyone for such a great panel here and really good insights. So I wouldn't say there are certain solutions that I have that are necessarily applicable for everyone, because this is relativistic and What I can talk about is what has worked for us in the set of schools that we work. So today we are working with roughly 6,000 plus institutions, and everyone with around 600 more schools every month. What has been working in this community is something that we have already spoken about. I think the first most important thing for us also, although we come in as a finance player, is communication. And so what we have actually witnessed is, if you want to enable the parents to pay fees, it has to be also transparent, because yes, the parents don't know exactly for what they're paying the fees. So you can't just push them and ask them to pay in EMIs, or that structure also, for that to work, they first of all have to have an intention to pay. So what we did within our ecosystem, we firstly interacted with a lot of parents and a lot of schools. I would say in terms of schools, more than 1,000 is what we spoke to. And in parents, more than 10,000 people that we've actually interacted to really understand what is going and what is their perspective. So some of the parents had struggle point, like few parents came forward and they told us that they have to sit along with their children. Of course, their children's education, they have to, but at times they get irritated because they have jobs also to do, right? And that job vertical is also at risk during COVID. So they get irritated that if I'm spending so much of time with my kid, for what am I paying for, right? Can I do a homeschool? Can I do something? So that irritation builds up, right? So sometimes they say there should be something more that should come to me. Some of the communication came forward where they were asking for value-added benefits. Some came forward where they were not clear with what is happening. Like the skilling required now from the teachers is much larger. It's a blended format, right? So doesn't come with the same skill set. So it's just that the parent doesn't realize it. If you talk to them, like Monisha ma'am also here specifically said, if you communicate for where the expenses are, the willingness for them to pay is extremely large. I mean, we have seen it in those schools. It's only that they have to know. It's not that school is charging for transportation and you're not using it. The school is not charging for it. They have reduced that fee. But they have to now know for what is the school charging. Even within the tuition segment, if you can break it up and you can explain what is required. Like some schools have gone ahead and said that if you want us to reduce the skill of the teacher, it will affect your kid, right? Because they have to be paid. And that is what the skill and the quality of education your child will get. So there were certain aspects that came from the parents' perspective. For us to deploy a solution successfully in all these schools, we had to balance both sides, right? So we spoke to schools, parents as well as schools. So schools also came ahead, like it's a classic chicken and egg. So they need to adapt to the digitization. So they again need to spend. It can't be just a Zoom call, right? They have to bring in more facilities. And like it was pointed out, like EdTech come with different offerings and all. But yes, school has to make it, because EdTech has pros and cons both. Right? I mean, yeah, the costing could be different, but it gives a different flavor of learning to the kid. And the parent is extremely happy. Like I've seen in my house also, if I can teach you something with a video format in the background, I'm willing to pay more for it. It's just coming to me in a different format, right? So you have to understand both sides of it. So what we did to help both sides have a balance, right? We first went to parents, and from the parents' perspective, like Rajesh and Vivek already pointed out, we created a zero interest EMI offer through a subvention. So parents has a reduced payment burden, so they can pay in EMIs. That was just one. What we did more to this is we gave them a free of cost education guarantee insurance. We told them, now you're worried, what happens in future? If you as a bread owner, you lose your job, or you have hospitalization or accidental death or any unfortunate event, then we told them we will pay for your child's education in the same institution, not only for that year, for remaining years. Right? So we'll take care of your child's education forever. So that entices them, that helps them, gives them more courage, right? And finally, when they were asking for reduction in fees, we understood schools don't have the bandwidth to reduce it further. So we started giving them a 10% cashback from our side. It can be utilized in different formats. So we said, okay, you pay the fees, you wanted a reduction. I will give you the 10% cashback as the fee payment happens, and you get it what you want, right? So ultimately what was happening was the payment side on the parents increased. So in our set of schools, when we implemented this, more than 30% parents did start opting for paying via Financepeer, and schools got chunk of fees upfront from these 30% parents. And this year it has increased further. So that's one step that we did. Step two is on the school side, we understood that digitization is a bit difficult. So either they have to create it in-house, so which is capital intensive and time consuming, because you don't need to have expertise in every field, right? You don't need to have expertise in finance, expertise in tech. Your expertise is core education. So what we did was, our expertise was tech and finance in this area. So as an edtech solution, we got a lot of digitized solution absolutely free of cost, right? So we are not saying this is at this and this is extra, nothing at all. We're just going to them and telling them, You need to teach digitally. You don't have online classes. You want auto correction of assignments. You want examinations online. I'll give you all the modules. I'm not going to charge you at all. So you are happy, and the parents are, what is important for us, the parents are happy in terms of their experience and their willingness to pay increase. We are just trying to increase the willingness to pay, right? So if you have to understand that portion. So we came in first with free ERP and LMS systems. We are giving them cards now, which is our Financepeer card. We give financial literacy to the students, again, at no additional cost. So the students can have a credit and debit access. They realize what's the importance of paying on time. Right? And then we have a lot of content. We give them free content as well. We give them access to other content in terms of student base, but at a very subsidized cost. Right? So this way, the same community now is more happy because parents feel they have much more in terms of value added, in terms of insurance or cashback. They have larger access to content which is coming in a subsidized format. And they really have a digitized learning mechanism, because just a video call doesn't make it digitized. The parent has to do all the homework there to understand what is happening, right? So that happened, the willingness increased. And on the schools end also, we didn't come up with a cost. Right? There's a subvention cost, which we also like to reduce. So it varies. It's sometimes around 8, it's sometimes lower than it. We can have different modules, like we were pointing out, where we can pay it in 2 tranches. It can be 3%, 2%, 4%. It can go as low as that as well, right? It's only that we have to focus on increasing the willingness. If the intention of the parents becomes better, then you solve that portion of it. And we are making schools more tech savvy, and we are asking them not to do it by themselves. We'll do it for them, right? Because we have been doing it. That's our forte. And we do it without a cost. So forget about the differentiation in the costing as such. There is no costing, right? So that's one thing that we did. Beyond this, by doing this, what we handled is only one set of customers who do not intend to pay, but they have money to pay. So we are increasing the willingness of such parents to pay. But there are still customers who are genuinely affected and they are not supported. Now, these are again set of customers. Okay, the school can have only 2 options, right? One is you go to the government and ask, and we all know how difficult it is in terms of implementing and how much time it will take, right? So for whatever systems and policies that you want to change. The other way is that there are financial players who understand this area of impact. So you need not do everything by yourself. I'm again pointing that in the same manner. It's a school, you focus on education, but partner with players who can do that. So for example, today we have so much of funds that we have raised from impact funds, back in US, back in Norway, back from Australia. And as these funds are supported to exactly these people. In COVID times, we have given grants to more than 1,000 kids. Right? So that's a large amount because they've lost kids or they've lost their appetite to pay. So there are grants available, need not always be for government. It's also available from private. It's just that we'll have to start exploring it. And sometimes the government has partnership with foundations, which can help. But foundation needs a structure to it. So we are trying our best to work with different foundations, whether it's ACO Foundation, whether it's Global Giving or a Rockefeller. We're trying to work with them. And with the set of schools that we are working, if you're paying the fees and now you start facing trouble, there's an insurance. But if you're willing to pay, but you genuinely have an issue, we still want to help the school because we are working with the school to improve their fee cycle, right? So we are working on that and with impact funds. And I think that also is one area we could look at. And we are actively looking into it. There's limitation to it, of course, not available to the excess of what government can have, but there is a way through, right? That's one way that we can work with foundations on that end as well. So overall, my main perspective would be, I would say effective communication. That's majority. I mean, be a finance player or not, but the parents should know, the school should know, and both of them, if they understand each other, I think the willingness is good. But if the understanding is missing, especially because someone in the Karnataka segment said this about a school, someone in Delhi segment also say, why not for me? That's a huge gap that keeps happening throughout the country, and different states have different rules. Like some state government says, don't collect fees. Other state governments say, why are you collecting fees? Because one government said it for whatsoever reasons, right? So this creates a lot of havoc. So I think the effective communication is the key, like already pointed out, where parents, ultimately it's your kid. You want the best for your kid. So if you know if something can be affected and it's your kid who is going to be affected in the end, if things stop, your kid is being affected. The willingness is there. It will come out. And with genuine issues, they can reach out to different players to tackle the genuine issues as well. So I'll just stop it for now at that. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rohit. Keep up the good work that you're doing. More power to you. We started with Mr. Charak. We have gone from Jammu all the way to Gurugram, then across to Pune, Mumbai. So I'm going to go back all the way to Jammu. Mrs. Charak, thank you so much for waiting patiently for us to come back to you. Ma'am, your experience running your school for these last 1.5 years.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Since I think I'm one of the last speakers, and most of what I wanted to say has already been said by everybody else, I'll just be able to share a bit of my experience. And that is that it has been a difficult ride ever since COVID started. The story of my school, of our school, is somewhat similar to that of Shakuntala ji's school. We are a family of educationists, and we are not some big corporate house whose main business is something else, and who uses its money to invest in schools or something like that. We have been wholly solely into this field only. And for us especially, it has been a rough ride because we couldn't bank on anything else. And our chairman, sir, who's my father-in-law, he also had this vision to start a school in a rural area, very near to the village where he grew up. And he wanted to give back something to that area, and he wanted to facilitate the children over there so that they did not have to travel all the way to the city and increase the financial burden on their families, because having to pay transport charges is not something that they are looking for. So with this very noble intention, he started the school, and we built a beautiful building. It's one of the, if I may say so, one of the most beautiful school buildings in the state, but now it's all empty. And it's very ironic because they call teachers the nation builders, but schools from where they have to, do that work of building a nation are left out in the cold. We really don't seem to be one of the priorities of the government, not of the state government, not of the central government. And I don't have much experience of the Indian context because I grew up in the Netherlands, and there most of the schools are run by the government, and or they are aided by the government. So there are very few private schools in the Netherlands. And I remember from my own childhood, I went to an excellent government school because that was the only option. And the topic at home or at the homes of most of my classmates was never the payment of school fees, because that was one of the concerns of the government, and the government used to look after that. So I think schools in India should be prioritized more by the government, especially in today's scenario when everybody is suffering. The parents are also suffering, but the schools are also suffering. And we are not one of the takers of society. We are one of the givers. We are trying to add something. We are trying to work on the upliftment, especially the schools which are functioning in the rural sector. So we should be looked after more, and we should be helped more. And but the contrary is being done. So things are being made more difficult for us instead of helping us out with the financial problems that we are facing, because everybody seems to be talking about the parents, and I agree that there is a small group of parents who have actually lost their jobs or their livelihoods, and they are actually struggling. And there have been a couple of children in our school also who have lost their fathers, or some of them have lost both their parents, and who are not in a position to pay the school fees. We have completely waived off their school fees. We are supporting them in every way possible. But then the majority of parents does not belong to that group. And they are just using this pandemic as an excuse to not to pay the school fees. And they have adopted a wait and watch policy. They just want to wait and see what the other parents will do. Although they can easily pay. And just like one of the other speakers was also saying, it is very funny. I mean, we get to see that. Get to see this on a daily basis almost, that they come to school in nice big cars or riding very expensive bikes, wearing leather jackets and carrying very expensive mobile phones. But when it comes to paying fees, they all of a sudden cite financial crises. So it's all very difficult to explain also, because we are not able to distinguish between the ones who actually are suffering and the ones who are pretending to be suffering. And at this point of time, I think the government should be more thoughtful about the problems that schools are going through, because we are also we are not just responsible for providing education to our students. We are also responsible for the livelihoods of so many people who are associated with us, right from the principal to the sweeper. And like we were not allowed to take transport charges, which was understood because the buses were not plying. But for how long could we carry on paying the drivers and the conductors? So because since we are not getting anything, so we couldn't pay them for a very long time also. And nobody is considering the plight of those people who've lost their jobs because schools are facing a financial crunch. So yeah, just like everybody else, we are also sailing in the same boat. But our problems are maybe a little bigger because of the area in which we are located as a school.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I think today's session has been particularly interesting because we covered quite a wide spectrum in terms of the kind of problems, the scale of schools, the approach to problems, or the kind of interaction with parents, or the kind of parents that they have had to deal with. Vivek, if I may invite you back, you as an organization have been at the epicenter of school finances, school financing. What's your take on all of this as a closing?
Thanks, Subayu. Thanks, Subayu. So let me give you an insight of our company first. I think Avanse is only one company in the country today which operates in both B2B and B2C space. So somebody wanting to go for a higher studies can come forward and take a loan from Avanse. Somebody wanting to do a school fee financing can come and take a loan from Avanse. A school, because we have already have 1,000 schools as our own customers, and we have been there with them through thick and thin, supporting them through thick and thin, because we know for sure they will all come back. They have that resilience, because as rightly called out by Ruchi ma'am, that fees are not coming in many schools. Rural areas, they are actually struggling. I think what has been called out by Monisha ma'am and which has been called by your Rohit is basically the communication part is very, very important. The relationship building that you actually do, because you deal with human beings, you deal with parents who are actually sending they trust you. There's a trust factor. They're sending their kids to your school for education. So the trust factor is there. If you actually build on that relationship, sometimes this actually irons out. But then definitely there are bodies which are working on those pragmatic steps, because they say that they should not come forward. So we as a financial institutions, I think we have almost 120,000 retail customers whom we have supported for their dreams, whether they want to go for upgrad studies, wanting to go do a post-graduation in US, UK or Canada. There we have supported them. We have almost 1,000 schools on our portfolio. So we are there, we are committed to do this business. We are committed to do and support them through thick and thin. We are there to support them. We are there to give you what kind of support you want. We know this crisis will not last forever. It is definitely, it was supposed to get over in last year. But now that there is a call of second wave, third wave. And since we're talking of 2, 3, 4, we don't know for sure how many more waves would come. But if that is there, it will be a mix and match of phygital, which is physical plus digital classes for this year and the coming year, definitely for this year, not sure for the next academic year. So in that case, we will help any school wanting to go for an upgradation, any school wanting to build up a capex plan. Shakuntala ma'am said that she wants to defer the development plan. So if there is a merit in that, and if this development plan will actually help you out in serving your customers better or students better, I think we are there to support you. So as a financing company, we will be able to support through all your requirements. We have a wide spectrum of products, right from working capital. If you need a working capital to manage your short-term plebs, if you want to go in for technical upgradation, you want to balance transfer your loan where the EMIs are very hefty, you're not able to pay those hefty EMIs, you want to balance transfer those loans to our institution, we will be happy to enable you that also. You heard Rohit that a 0% interest cost for the parent with the insurance cover coming all the way, where somebody is taken care of, that if there is something, a loss of life, the fees would be paid. So I think these are some of the unique products that we are all working with. Rohit is one of the partners that we are working with. We are working with a plethora of partners across. So we will be helping out education institutions through thick and thin. That is the message that we want to give from Avanse side. Avanse is one, we want to build into education. Our motto is there should not be a dearth, there should not be a fund crisis.
Vivek, I think you got muted.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's a mistake from my side. So I think Avanse as a company wants to help any enabling student who wants to aspire and grow big, any education institution who wants to continue in this business and provide services to the segment, because at the end of the day, private schools would be needed. Indian government, the total capacity that is there, it will not be possible. The NEP policy that we have rolled out caters to a very huge mission. It talks about completely changing the education as a gamut. So that would only be enabling by the private and the public partnerships. If you only think about only government institutions will come forward and do that, it will not be possible. So that is from my side. I think we at Avanse are always there to help out education institutions. Anybody wanting to look for any kind of support will be enabling if they fulfill the criteria of the credit worthiness. Thank you so much, Subhayu.
Thank you, Vivek. Thank you for sharing that. Well, today has been an extra long session, so I must thank each and everyone still here for being here. But I think today's session was very important, very contextual, and addresses, and as Achin mentioned earlier, very, very solution focused. Achin,
can I again ask one question, please?
Sure, sir, please.
Yeah, almost every school is looking into this case. Wherever there's a loss of life, they are exempting their entire tuition fees. So when Vivek says so, what is the statistics or number of people that you think have lost their lives whom you are supporting?
Sir, as such, we don't have directly statistics to that, because we are all covered. All our parents are covered under insurances. So whatever loans that we actually do, so they are covered under insurances.
Okay. Yeah. See, thank you.
All right. Achin, over to you for the vote of thanks. Quite a bit to thank for.
I think really great discussion today we had, Shiva. Very seamless discussion, very thought-provoking. And the best part of it was the interaction that I saw among our esteemed panelists. That is the entire objective of Together for Education as a platform. But sir, thank you as always for giving us a great start, for sharing your perspective. I think you really set the tone for the evening. Advocate Charak, sir, I sincerely thank you for being here today, for being a part of the panel, and also for raising your concern. I honestly believe, sir, debate, discourse, sharing of our views, these are things that really, as an organization, as a thought-sharing platform, we thrive on. So the entire what we aspire to bring on board in Together for Education webinar, which by far is the largest thought-sharing platform today in India. Today, as we speak, we are hosting the 115th episode. Is a free-flowing discussion when we really want our esteemed panelists to come forward and express their views. And I thank you for your honest perspective, for sharing your challenges, which I'm sure many of our esteemed educators here who are today in this forum, school owners, directors, as well as principals, many senior educators here are facing similar concerns. I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Colonel Kumar Pratap Singh, I thank you so much. Whenever you have been in the panel, lot of, I'll say, interesting insights, value-adding insights come from you. And I really like your perspective, the way you emphasized on communication. And that was something later point of time other panelists also focused on. I think very, very important point. And I really like, sir, when you shared your real life case study, real life insight with regard to the fact that out of 1,300 students, only 60 parents, out of 1,300 parents, only 60 of them who genuinely might have suffered, say, for example, a job loss, pay cut, etc., they came forward. That also goes on to show that when we are transparent, when we communicate effectively, indeed, transparency and free and fair communication is a two-way process. People do respond. That really builds our belief in the entire educational ecosystem, where parents and schools, they're the integral part of it. So this partnership that other panelists also referred to. So, sir, I really thank you for sharing this. This gives a lot of confidence, I'm sure, to a lot of other educators as well. A great takeaway points. Also, I like, sir, I think you referred to a very interesting point. I really liked the way you shared your small incident with regard to how you built up your school, and the fact that initially there are teething troubles, but later point of time, as we go forward, things tend to get stabilized, as in the case of other organizations as well. So I'm sure your words of wisdom will give a lot of confidence to so many esteemed educators who are here today in this forum who might be facing challenges.
It is now in the top 200 schools, top 100 schools of India twice.
Wonderful, sir. Wonderful. We indeed, when we hear this, we indeed feel so happy and proud. Great, sir. Great. Thank you so much. Vivek, I sincerely thank you for being here today, for being a part of the panel. I must compliment you for your great thoughts, great industry perspective. I say when you were speaking, I could see so much of domain knowledge, so much of confidence coming in, and so much of logical and seamless flow of thoughts. Very, very happy to know about chamber representations, various forums wherein expectations of educational stakeholders are being actively pursued by you and your organization and other industry players. That's something which is very reassuring. Also, I think you connected the dots very well in terms of referring to NEP, undoubtedly. And the fact that indeed, as a nation, as we aspire and we are confident, because even in the midst of pandemic, in the middle of so many challenges, government did roll out NEP, which was a very bold step, sent out a great message to the entire world. So I think the fact that you connected NEP to the current set of challenges and very well highlighted that this is the need of the hour, we need certain support, and that really helps. I think great. And also thank you for summarizing the discussion at the end. So great thoughts, Vivek. I indeed thank you for your commitment to education. I think that's very important. Thank you so much. Shakuntala ma'am, I really sincerely thank you for bringing in your academic perspective to the whole topic. And also, I think you rightly referred to as the way the entire you offered EMIs to your student, 10 to 12 EMIs, when school actually took a hit in terms of the interest payment. And we're really indeed very, very happy to know about your admissions and retention in this season. Indeed, again, incidents like this give a lot of confidence, I'm sure, to many other senior educationists who are today in this forum. Thank you, ma'am, so much for taking your time out and being a part of the panel. Monisha, ma'am, thank you so much for being here today. In ma'am, earlier also, we have been benefited by your words of wisdom. So I really liked one aspect when you referred to that mapping of parents and their profession. I found that very, very insightful. I found that very relevant, pertinent, and intelligent. I think that is the analytical way to go forward. And the fact that, yes, genuinely zeroing on people who need help and ensuring that, yes, we stand shoulder to shoulder as a society with those who genuinely need help is the need of the hour. So I indeed compliment you and your entire school management on this. I think very, very, very relevant. And a step in the right direction. And also working on issues like mental health, on workshops, keeping activities going, and also a lot of restructuring involving all stakeholders, which is a need of the hour. Indeed, I think great steps, ma'am. We sincerely thank you for your time and for sharing your perspective. I'm sure it benefits a lot of people here. Pleasure is all our man. Rajesh, first and foremost, I wish your daughter a very speedy recovery. I'm sure that she'll recover very soon. I thank you so much that in spite of the fact that your daughter is in hospital, still you took your time out and you enriched us with your industry insights. Indeed, that KG to PG vision that you spoke of, I'm sure that stays with the audience. And also various options and the passing on the benefit to the parents, something which is very, very important you spoke of. And reiterating the challenges with all honesty that schools are facing. So I think, Rajesh, thank you so much for your perspective. Rohit?
Thanks, buddy. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Rohit, I sincerely thank you for taking your time out and enriching all of us. I think some very important points you mentioned, which earlier Monisha ma'am also emphasized on, Colonel Singh also emphasized on, the importance of communication, importance of transparent communication. And transparent communication, when we say transparent communication among all stakeholders, indeed, if parents know that what actually they're paying for, I'm sure that does build bridges of confidence, which helps. So I think Rajesh, I think Rohit, very, very relevant point. Thank you for that. And also, I think another very important thing you spoke about, that is assuring parents about continuity of education. The whole insurance angle that you brought forward, that is very, very socially responsible. I think great step. And the need for greater understanding between schools and parents. This is, of course, this is a very, very important point, which all of us, I'm sure, agree with you here today. Thank you so much indeed for your time. Ruchi ma'am, I thank you. I thank you for sharing your honest perspective, for calling a spade, and for sharing with us the fact that yes, indeed, it has been a rough and difficult ride, as I'm sure it has been with a lot of schools, and also enriching us with regard to your own schooling experience at Netherlands, sharing the perspective. So I thank you for raising your concern, and I'm sure in a thought sharing platform like this, your concerns are shared by many people. And I'm sure today, by hosting this session, we have been able to at least bring in some value with regard to this problem. I sincerely thank all our esteemed panelists. So today was a session we really deliberated on this, with so many speakers, how we could manage within this time. But we really wanted to ensure that this is a roundtable, a director's roundtable, with also not only the problem side, but also the solution side coming in. So I think it has been a really great, wonderful session. I thank all of you for your time here today. Thank you, take care, and goodbye.
Thank you, Notebook team. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivek. Pleasure is all ours.